tend to talk a lot about omnichannel and Azure DevOps, primarily Azure DevOps, but I will be diversifying as I get more into the rest of the Insights products. So if you're not following me, please follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I do have a blog where I do blog about the different topics. So please follow me there as well and subscribe. What we're going to go through is pretty much an overview, and I'm basically going to be starting from the absolute beginning, assuming that we don't really know anything about Insights and how it relates to the standard D365 products, okay? Then we're going to go into each of the different features based upon the module that we're going to be going into. What I'll do is I will save some time at the end for questions. So if you'd like to take yourself off mute and ask questions, then that's absolutely fine. Or just as we go, just put it in the chat window and I'll respond towards the end as well there. Okay, cool. So Dynamics 365. Now, D365 is pretty much made up of several different modules, and each of these modules satisfy a particular business need. All the modules are built on top of what's known as like the Microsoft Power Platform, which really allows us to easily interact and integrate with the applicable modules. Now, the primary module and the star of today's presentation is going to be the sales module. Okay. Now, with the sales module it suits the purpose to provide a way for salespeople or the sales staff to be more efficient, more productive with information that they have, but also allow them to be able to streamline according to the business needs. So each business will have their own particular needs, right? And within sales, you can navigate through that journey, ensuring that everyone is sticking to the same script, but also with their own flavor. And with that data that they're putting into the system, they can actually maximize and be just more effective. Now, when we add on top of that, we have different add-ons that Microsoft provide, different add-ons like applications, AI apps, right? Now, one of them is Customer Insights, which basically provides a 360-degree view of customers. So, for example, if we had different systems, as we all do, you know, your old legacy systems that you just can't get rid of, how can we group information together in order to allow a salesperson to maximize and understand what their next best play is? This is where Customer Insights can come into play. It's also used by you know, the marketing team as well. On top of that, we also have, well, this should now be Sales Insights. This is an older slide, but this is now Sales Insights. It used to be AI for sales. But what Sales Insights also does, it basically allows us to group the data together, utilizes machine learning in order to, again, I keep mentioning this, but it's really the name of it. It's maximizing on what you've already got without needing to do anything else. So without the salesperson needing to do any extra work, they're going to be able to get a lot more out of the system in order to prioritize leads, in order to build a better relationship with the customers, and therefore eventually do what the ultimate goal of any salesperson really is, to close that sale that much quicker. Okay, so with that, with Sales Insights, what I'm not saying is that you will have to choose or purchase an add-on in order to take advantage of the features. No, instead, what I'm actually saying is that there is some aspect of machine learning, irrespective of the module that we choose, irrespective of where we choose. So if we start looking at D365 Sales, D365 Sales, if you have the enterprise version, already has some insights features available there. So for example, being able to ascertain whether or not the email being sent, if that's the best time to send it, or, you know, being able to see if they've clicked on your email, etc. That's already embedded and native to D365 Sales Enterprise. You've also got the ability to automatically capture emails or or appointments as they come into your Exchange calendar without having to go into your Outlook client. So from within D365 Sales, you can actually see, okay, there is an untracked email that needs my attention. So these are the different things that you can currently do within D365 Sales Enterprise. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you some of those features and talking about what is the quote unquote free version of Sales Insights versus the paid for version. So you can take advantage of things if you've got Enterprise already. You've also got Sales Insights, and this is where this is the meat of everything, really, because this then allows us to do the predictive lead and opportunity scoring, the predictive whatchamacallit, the predictive, well, the predictive lead is the relationship analytics, the and all the rest of the trends, and being able to do the goal, etc. So that's all grouped inside of Sales Insights. And I'm also going to be showing you those features as well. And then finally, one of the features that's not really talked about often, conversation intelligence. Now, conversation intelligence, you do get some of this wrapped up into the Sales Insights module, but it's also its own separate piece as well, which can then be used to provide continuous improvement to sales team, especially if they're on the phone. How can they get better at discussing things with their customers and interacting with their customers? So if we start off with the first part of the demo, in the first part of the demo, what I'm going to be showing you is how we can utilize the free version of Sales Insights. That's going to be Relationship Assistant. Now, I think this is not new. I mean, this is the Relationship Assistant has, I think, was the one of the first pieces of Sales Insights that was actually released. And this is basically where we can utilize what's known as adaptive cards to guide an agent or a salesperson through what they might need to be aware of for the day. So you can have a dashboard with these cards that basically flag to say, hey, you got an email, this customer isn't so happy, you might want to contact them, or you missed this email, they are still waiting on the attachment you promised. So it's really just having kind of a virtual assistant, so to speak. You've also got email engagement, as I mentioned before, which really just enables you to see if your message is landing. So are people even reading your emails? Are they clicking on your attachments or your links? And then also finally, a version of auto capture, which is where in the contact or the lead record or the main record, you can see whether or not there is a pending untracked email that's associated to your inbox. So let me just pop out of this demo. One sec. I'm just going to bring this across. Okay, so what I have here is the first part, which is email engagements. Now with email engagement, as you can see here, I sent an email and it's actually tracked. But when I do send an email, what I actually get asked is if I want to follow the email. And now if I follow the email, what will happen is you'll see that there's an email engagement tab that appears. When the email engagement tab appears, you can actually see whether or not the email is being followed or not. You can set a reminder for yourself to say, okay, I need to chase this email to see if they've responded, etc. On top of that, you can see if the email's been opened, how many times, if there's any links or attachments or replies. Now, about email engagement, how it does this is by putting in a very tiny microscopic image in the email, which allows, which when downloaded, alerts Dynamics Sales Insights to let it know that the email has been opened. Right now, if the email has been opened, this is basically where it it gets shown. Now, to track the attachments and how many times the attachments have been viewed, the attachment, when you associate the attachment to the email, what actually happens is that attachment is then saved inside of SharePoint. And that's actually what's used to track that the attachments have been opened and how many attachments have been, how many times it has been viewed. So it associates a unique reference to it in SharePoint. So in order to utilize this, you will actually need three things. You'll obviously need to have, well, four things. You'll need to have Exchange. You'll have to have OneDrive and SharePoint configured as well. And you'll also have to have Bing Map enabled as well in the organization. Now, Bing Map needs to be enabled in the organization for the purposes of, if I send an email, there is one thing that it will ask me to do, which is this might not be the right time to send the email, and it's based upon the recipient's time zone. How it ascertains the time zone, it uses Bing Maps to help with that. So you will need to enable Bing Map in order to get the full benefits of email engagement. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is auto capturing and so auto capturing and then relationship assistant. So with auto capturing, I mentioned that it actually is shown in the timeline. So if I have an email that I've not seen in my inboxes yet, and I'm working on the record, what I'll see is the activity suggestion that pops up here. Now to track it, all I need to do is actually save the email to my timeline. This will then allow this email to be seen by everyone in my organization that has access to this contact or the email record. That's based on security roles. Now, when I say that now everyone can see it, it's because it's looking at my personal inbox and looking at the contact using the email address that's associated. So for example, if Neil logged in as himself, he won't see this email. He will see any emails that's applicable to him. Okay, so it's looking at the individual's exchange and looking at it from that point of view. Okay, the other thing as well is being able to utilize what's known as the relationship assistant. So with the relationship assistant, you have different cards that you can configure. These are cards such as I might be in a particular area, and if if a meeting has been created, it can utilize the postcode and the town, city, to ascertain whether or not the area is close by, and then it will show nearby customers that you might also want to pay a visit to since you're in the area. As I mentioned, it could also show different things related to email, such as missing attachments, or you might have an unhappy customer or a customer that's mentioning a competitor. So you can flag whether or not you're interested in any of those. Now, I mentioned that you flag them, and that's simply because with the free version of Relationship Assistant, because there is a paid for version in the Sales Insights bit as well, you're not able to create custom cards. However, of course, you can create custom cards inside of the paid for version. So this could be if something happens in another system, if someone misses a payment, for example, you could create a relationship card for that account manager to chase. By the way, they have missed their second payment. You now need to be aware of this for when you're going to your meeting. And that could actually be shown up as a card on the Relationship Assistant. And that, as I mentioned, is basically done using adaptive cards. So if I'm just trying to find my mouse. There you are. Okay, so that's basically what this notification is. Okay, now I can, of course, open the appointment, email the attendees, and this is all because of the options that I have available to me with this card specifically, and I can choose to snooze it or close it entirely. So that in a nutshell is the three options that I have available to me with the sales insights. Sorry, the D365 sales enterprise features, free features of sales insights in D365 enterprise. So the other areas of sales insights, we have the ability to utilize auto capture. Now, we talked about auto capturing briefly in the free version in D365 Sales Enterprise. It's not really free because you're still paying for it. It's just a part of that license. You also have predictive scoring for both lead and opportunity. And you also have talking points, which is basically where we can build rapport with the customer. So if I basically mentioned, to be honest, I wasn't really well last week and I was off, then it will flag up that I had maybe a health problem that I might be able to use to build my relationship with you. Because if I was also sick, I can empathize with that, or I can relate to that. You also have, so with talking points, so Talking Points is now available, I believe, in the UK. Who Knows Whom is available only at the moment in North America. And that is because of there is some legal ramifications that they're still working out. You've also got relationship analytics. Relationship analytics is basically how we can ensure that we're building on that relationship. How frequently are you keeping in contact with your customers? How frequently are you seeing them, meeting them. And this is going to be different for each company. Some companies might want you to be in touch with a customer every 2 weeks via phone at least, but see the customer at least once a month physically. So with relationship analytics, you can assess the score to see if that's actually being done. And that will basically define whether or not it's a good relationship with the customer or not. And Who Knows Whom basically is if you want to be introduced to an agent or to a customer rather, how can we identify if anyone else has an existing relationship with that customer? So if we have an existing relationship with a customer, then we can leverage that to then be introduced. So this is really useful. For example, if you're a new account manager and you want to start building those relationships quickly, utilize the existing relationship that your colleagues have so you can actually build your own relationship with the customer. So that's where that really comes in useful. You've also got suggested activities. So with suggested activities, with suggested activities, this is where we can populate things in the notes area, and it will utilize what it's saying to try to to prompt you to say, okay, do you actually mean that you want me to create a phone call or a meeting? So instead of having to then go off and create the meeting manually, the system is going to try and help. So this is all about, as I mentioned before, being more efficient, being more, supporting salespeople to reduce the amount of work, reduce their workload, and also being able to build your relationship so we can ultimately, ideally, get a result of a better sale or a quicker sale, So let's just go in and have a look at what that looks like. So with auto capture, what I'm going to do is just bring back up my system. Okay, so with auto capture, what the difference between auto capture is and auto capture is the difference between auto capture in Sales Insights and D365 Sales Enterprise is with Sales Enterprise, I had to go to the timeline, whereas in Sales Insights, this is in preview, by the way, so this is not going to be in the current version, but you can enable it in preview in a trial environment to have a look to see what it's going to look like. But with this, you can actually have an area where you actually go in and it just gives you the full list of actual suggestions. So you can choose whether or not you actually want to utilize this or not. Okay, so if you want to save it as an activity and then that will then allow everyone to see it, you can actually just utilize this view to do that. You also have contact suggestions. So what contact suggestions does is it basically runs through the list of contacts that you have in Exchange and pushes them through to D365 cells, but it's not saved as a contact until you save it as a contact. Okay. So that's basically the difference between the two and how they actually look. So the next thing as well that I want to show is, let's jump to this, is the predictive lead scoring. I tried to track this properly. There you go. Yeah, so the predictive lead scoring. Now, one of the things that salespeople will tend to struggle with or have to deal with is being able to identify which leads they should focus on, which leads are worth their time effectively. And obviously we have a long history. They've been doing this for a long time. So they will have a lot of information that might already be available. Now, if that information is already available, what machine learning does and what Sales Insight does is it utilizes machine learning to understand what was successful in the past and why. So whether or not our sweet spot is leads with a budget between a certain amount that are in a particular industry that has any particular type of it's looking at all this information, and then it's going to score that information, and we can then give that score a particular grade. So between a particular score, we can say between like 70 and 100, that's a grade A. Between 50 and 70, that's B, etc., etc. So I would probably focus on my grade A leads because these are the leads that are most likely, based upon our history, that we're going to win. Okay, so if I go into one of these leads, so if I go into, for example, Helen Thomas here, I can actually have a look to see the predictive lead scoring to see why it's actually given this lead a score of 95. And that's because I've actually rated this lead as hot, which means that it's definitely going to land. That there's a budget of this amount, that the source. So all of this is basically where and why it's giving that score. In the past, we weren't able to change the model that was being used to set the leads. But now it is actually possible. And I'm not sure if that's in preview or not. I will send a tweet out about it. But we can actually now choose which fields that make up this model. So if there's a custom field that you've created that needs to be a part of the model, you can now include it. And it can then use that to identify if the score, if the lead is a high value lead or not. Okay. Another thing as well, I talked about activity suggestions. So here we have a phone call, and in the phone call, we put a note there to be able to identify to basically say what we actually needed to do as our next steps. So here, if I wanted to, I can't actually click on it. It's giving me that there's a new phone call suggestion. So all I need to do is actually click on edit and create. That will actually generate a new phone call against this lead. And what it also does, which I really quite like, is if you put in just have a 15-minute phone call, or let's have a catch up in 2 weeks, it actually picks up on that language as well and populates the necessary duration and also the date as well, based upon what I've actually put in to my suggestion as well. So I like that. I think that was quite cute. The next thing as well is after I identify that score is quite good, what I can actually then do is identify the another way to identify who I might want to interact with is based on the relationship that I have with the customer. So that's basically the relationship health score. The relationship health score is basically how frequently am I interacting with the customer, whether that be every week, every 2 weeks. And as I mentioned, this is something that is configured by your organization. So as an organization, you can make this decision, and that's going to be decided, and that's going to be used to identify or decide what the state and the options are, whether it not be good, fair, poor, etc. Okay. If we go into it in a bit more detail, and we go into the relationship analytics tab inside the opportunity, here you can actually see details about the interactions. How frequently are we having those interactions? You know, how many interactions and how much time are being spent between them and us? Because obviously, if we're spending a lot more time than them, are we more invested than them? Than the customer. So is this actually a good opportunity or not? Pulling in from the email engagement, which again is actually a part of something that you can get in Sales Enterprise. What's the percentage of the leads of the emails are being opened, viewed, clicks? So are they actually responding to us? You know, and how quickly are they responding to us? And my favorite feature is the relationship activities, where we can actually now have a timeline to see the flow of the relationships that we have. And this is basically taking from the activities that we have against the system. So it's going to be very clear if there's a massive gap between two dates that we have not really been interacting with this client at all. Okay. Also, we can identify who our most contacted stakeholders are and our most engaged stakeholders. So are we actually contacting the right people? You know? So that is the other thing as well is, so I talked about some of the features that are, yes, currently available only within the North American market. But there was a feature that was, so both of them were only available in North America. And then one of them got released in inside of Europe. And I think that one was, actually, no, I think it was Who Knows Whom. I think Who Knows Whom is actually available in Europe, but I will double check, and again I will tweet that. But Who Knows Whom basically is utilizing Exchange and pulling in Exchange to see which of your colleagues have a good relationship with the customer. So if I basically click on my lovely graph, I like seeing it here because the closer you are to the relationship, it means the stronger your relationship is with that customer, kind of like these green bars. I can actually then choose to send an email to get introduced. So I can send an email to get introduced, and this email is basically utilizing a template. So you can actually associate a standard template that's associated that it will then use to just quickly just send an email to your colleague to say, hey, I want to get introduced to this person, right? And then also against talking points, as I mentioned that we were able to review the emails. So it's all utilizing emails. And as I mentioned, Sales Insights is not about giving the salesperson more work to do. It's about being able to leverage information that's already in the system, information that's already being provided, and being able to give them a different way of looking at that information, but also giving them more insights because then they can actually see trends. Okay, so you can then see the data for the different talking points and see what they actually said in those emails as well. So you can then interact with them and say, hey, you know, like I came down with the flu as well, or something like that. Don't lie, but you know, if you did, you can say that. Now, if I just go back to this. So in this piece of it, what I demonstrated was Sales Insights. We talked about how we could leverage auto capture. So we looked at a different way of utilizing auto capture in terms of the view instead of having to go to each individual customer. We also looked at predictive scoring. And that predictive scoring that I demonstrated on the lead is, of course, also available on the opportunity as well. So you've got the view for lead score and opportunity score. You've also got talking points as well, which basically just allows you to build your rapport with the customer, to identify anything that you might be able to relate to with that customer and build that relationship. And also then utilize relationship analysis and analytics to see if how your relationship is with the contact, the lead, or the opportunity. Do you actually need to contact them more? Are you contacting the right people? To be able to build that the opportunity. Utilizing who knows whom to be able to leverage the relationship that your colleagues have. So you can then build your own individual relationship, and of course suggested activities, which then allows you to quickly create activity records or quickly relate records based upon the notes that you're putting into the system. So with all of these features are available in Sales Insights, we're able to pretty much make it easier for salespeople to do their jobs really, without them needing to do more work, because a lot of people see a CRM or D365 sales as big brother that's just there for them to do more admin. And with Sales Insights, it's not about admin, because they're not having to do additional work. It's just really, if they're doing it anyhow, being able to give them something, being able to give them the insights that they're going to need to be more efficient. Now, if we have a look at conversation intelligence is, again, like I really love Sales Insights, because depending on the area that you go, you can actually get so much value from the different pieces. So with conversation intelligence, what we use this for is being able to do continuous improvement for a sales team that might actually be on the phone. So if you've got a lot of companies nowadays, all calls have to be recorded. And if the calls are recorded, what tends to happen is it's for training and monitoring purposes. Now, if it's for training purposes, then you tend to have someone that's sitting there listening to the call and giving feedback to, they might be listening to it in isolation, or sometimes they sit with the person and they listen to it with the salesperson or the person that was on the call, so they can actually know how to improve, where they could have actually said something different or improved or behaved differently. And what conversation intelligence does is this now automatically transcribes the call. It also assesses the sentiment of not only the caller, but also of the agent as well. And then also allows you to have that ongoing coaching, because it compares the call that you as an agent had with your other colleagues as well, to see, are you listening or are you over talking your customer? Are you shouting? It does all of that for you. So let's jump in and just have a look to see what that actually looks like. So I have set this up. I have set up conversation intelligence. To set up conversation intelligence, you do need to have an Azure subscription. The container, you need to create a container, and the calls need to be pushed into that container after you set up the environment inside of your Sales AI environment. When you set up the environment here, it just needs the container ID. So once you start pushing calls into that container, then what it's then going to do is it's then going to analyze that call, right? And when you analyze the call, it's then doing the transcription, it's doing the sentiment, and then it's grouping and doing machine learning based on that as well. But when you also push the call in, what it's also expecting is a JSON file. The JSON file and the call recording name needs to be the same name. And the JSON file it's expecting needs to have information about the agent, information about the call, so it can then be parsed through. Now, that information is key, and information about this is available, of course, in Microsoft Docs. If you are interested in looking at this further, just let me know, and what I can do is I can send that out as well, because it's actually it's not super complicated to set up. You just got to get the right JSON format and also the call recording available. But once you've actually got the call recording available, what can you do? Well, inside of conversation intelligence, here you can actually see the overall customer sentiment. And this is for the last 7 days as myself, who I'm logged in as. So it basically gives you the trend of the tracked words and competitors. Now, I'm the one basically specifying what I wanted to listen out for. So it's if I wanted to be listening out for a particular competitor of mine, I can say that. And then in the transcription, it's going to listen out and flag which calls are mentioning that. Okay, as I mentioned before, it's actually comparing the different calls from my team. So I can see the talk to listen ratio in general, and also the calls that are associated to opportunities that are going well, the opportunities that have a good sentiment. What keywords are they using? And then what's the different sentiment based upon the salesperson overall? What does that actually look like against the average? I can also then drill in to the sales view. So based on the team, I can actually see here the actual individuals. Now, not because a salesperson has like a negative phone call, it means that something is wrong. In fact, I've seen like some salespeople that they shout on the phone. And when they shout on the phone, sometimes the system actually takes it to say that's negative. It's not really negative. They're showing enthusiasm. So there is some obviously human nature that you still have to listen to the call. You still have to be aware of the personality of people to ascertain that this system is saying that it's negative, but it's really not. But what I use this and how we use this is really for keyword tracking and to basically ensure, again, profanity, make sure everything is actually being said correctly. And if we wanted to, we could actually go in, as I mentioned the transcripts. So if I basically said I wanted to review one of the calls, ad hocly, I can actually go into one of the calls, and as I listened to the call, what will then happen is it would play the call, and as I played the call, the transcripts would actually go to where that call where it actually is in that call. So it's actually going through, seeing that, okay, the customer is talking and the customer is happy, or they're not. So these are the competitors that have been mentioned. As I mentioned before, we have to flag the competitors. We have to define what to listen out for. And but once we've done that, we can then relate it to the opportunity. And once we relate it to the opportunity, this doesn't actually get shown inside of Dynamics. I think that's something that's going to be coming next. For now, though, it's all within Sales AI. So it's all within the Sales Insights product. And this is something that's separate. So with Sales Insights, you get 3 hours of conversation intelligence available per user per month. Right. But if you wanted to take it further, then you'd have to get conversation intelligence on top of Sales Insights. So if we just went in just to have a review of the overview, and then what we'll do is we'll just look into some of the questions that you might have. So with Sales, D365 Sales, we looked at the features that you would have as part of that standard product. We have Relationship Assistant, Email Engagement, and Auto Capture. Sales Insights will give you these features as well. And note, I have not talked about the Teams integration and Business Card Reader and Notes Capture. I haven't talked about that. But those are also available, and they straddle the line between Sales Enterprise and Sales Insights. So there you'll have some free version in Sales Enterprise, but the bulk of that will be in Sales Insights as well. And then on top of Sales Insights, we also have conversation intelligence that's available that we can also levy. Are there any questions?
Thanks for that.
Thanks for that, Tricia. Yes, there are questions.
Okay.
Let's begin Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, could everybody just mute your mics? Possibly just. There you go, thanks. So Davey saying, for demo purpose, in case we need a lot of data to build a model, is there any out-of-the-box sample data that we can install to build a model? That's the first question.
So there are two options here. One, are you a partner? Or if you're a partner, then what you can do is you can, okay, so if you're not a partner, then what you would need to do is you would have to build up the data, unfortunately. So this for me, it has taken a while, because for the leads predictive scoring, that was fine. That only needed 40 records. But for opportunity scoring needs a bit more. It's not as bad as it was in the past. In the past, it needed like hundreds, but they have cut it down. But it doesn't help, because you still need the data, and you do have to get that data into the correct format, because it's looking for data that's within the year, and you need to have, for example, like 100 records that are closed, 100 records which are open, and it needs to be relatively realistic as well. So unfortunately, the answer is no. But if you were a partner, what you could actually levy is the demo builder functionality that Microsoft provide in CDX Transform. And what that does is that gives you access to an environment that's pre-populated for you, because they are aware that that is a limitation to demonstrate the product properly. But what they've assumed is that people are going to be using their actual data.
Thanks, Tricia. Harold is also saying that he couldn't find any data himself, so he had to manually do it. It took him about 4 hours. But as Tricia mentioned, there are partner resources available as well if you have access to them. The next question is by Harold, who is saying, note that the leads usually have a very limited set of data involved, so it is not easy to find patterns in the data in order to evaluate the calculation. The next question, Tricia, is by Coquelin. So Coquelin is asking, Sales Insights allows us to create custom cards. Is it possible to create custom model and train with some historical data and display the result in an adaptive card on a lead or opportunity? If it's possible, do we have to pay more to be able to create a custom model, or is it included in the Sales Insights license? Thanks.
So that would be a part of your Sales Insights license. It's not something that they'll tell you how to do, but if you put the pieces together, it's something that you should be able to do. For example, it is using machine learning, right? So the model is going to be there. You can change the model, like we talked about, for the predictive leads or opportunity. After that, they actually give an API where you can export that data. If you can export that data, you can then leverage things like Logic App Power Automate to take advantage of when you might actually want to surface a card. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it's not something that they've populated and said, this is how you do it, but the pieces are there. You have the ability to export the results of the model creation, and you have the ability to create your adaptive card and dynamically show it inside of Dynamics utilizing Power Automate. But that's a part of the Sales Insights license.
Great stuff. Dominique is asking, do you have a customer who has implemented that feature and uses it on a daily basis?
Which feature? We have customers that have implemented some of the features, not all of the features. So right now we're working with a customer that's implemented conversation intelligence, which is why I'm knee deep in that at the moment. And how they're utilizing it is they see the benefit where they used to send people out to do face-to-face meetings all the time, and they used to have to send feedback forms to the people that they would sell to, because of very regulated industry, and instead, now they're having to do phone conversations. The phone conversations have to be recorded. And what they would have is they would listen to the call recordings with the customer to make sure that the customer was happy with how the call went. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to be using conversation intelligence to kind of remove the need to have the customer on the call, because the call is recorded. You actually see get the transcript, so there's no confusion over what was said. So they're going to trust that the conversation intelligence can actually tackle that and utilize that as a way to coach their sales team, instead of doing it the older fashioned way of sitting down and having everyone there instead. So yeah, we're using that now.
Thanks, Tricia. That's exactly what they wanted to hear. And Harold is asking a question. Did you get this data on conversation intelligence? Did you create it yourself in a demo system, or was it provided somewhere for demo purpose?
So two things. I have another system where I've got my demo data. The data that I showed is the pre-configured demo environment that I talked about for partners, simply because it looks prettier. Now, my data, of course, because it's real world data, it's not as pretty because I'm still trying to find the correct Unix code for the time. So it shows as a time well in the past when it shouldn't be, and I didn't have time to update it, so I chose not to show it. But I do have a system with conversation intelligence that is it's a more realistic data set. Not that this one isn't realistic, but
And Davey is asking, what are the out-of-the-box adaptive cards that are already provided by the system, and what can we use without any customization?
To be honest, it's going to be hard to answer that. What I would recommend is going to the Microsoft Docs site and looking for the list, because there is a list of, I think, over 60 cards that are just available as standard, and they are added to a lot. So just keep an eye on that, have a look, and more than often you'll find things there that you'll just use. We've only ever had to extend twice, add like 2 additional cards, because we are using that in other systems, especially the financial sector. We've used that there as well, and we've not had to extend it much. It's been fine.
Now, Tricia, you have an announcement to make, haven't you, regarding the next few weeks?
I do, but I don't. Did I put? Yeah, I did. Okay, so guys, who's on the phone? Please, I and a bunch of other people are putting together a Microsoft 365 charity quiz. You might have seen it on Twitter or LinkedIn, but it's a really good cause. Obviously, we are aware of what's been happening with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm Jamaican, so I'm very, very touched by this. I'm very affected by this, and so are a lot of people in our community. What we're doing is we're putting together a 365 charity quiz that it's going to be based on the Microsoft stack. So that is Dynamics, that's Office 365, SharePoint, everything. So everyone can join in. What we ask is that if you're not able to come, please just go and donate. But if you are able to come, please go and register. The link is here. And what we'll do is we'll populate the link in the chat window as well. Just go and register. It's on July the 30th, and it's at 6 p.m. If you're not based in the UK, that's fine. It's a global initiative. So we've actually got things on in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, New Zealand. We've got Africa, and we've got Brazil and Latin America. So just basically go. There will be and the US as well, there will be a region that is aligned for your time zone. Just go and register. The charity that we're working with in the UK is Black Minds Matter. And Black Minds Matter is all about mentoring, training, and providing therapy to Black youth between the ages of 17 and 25. So this is going towards them, and we're actually going to be working with them for the next year to upskill them on the Power Platform. So it's going to be, we're going to be able to get a lot more, opportunities to them, but also give us the opportunity as well to diversify our own community. So I think it's going to be great. Please register.
So there you go. I've posted the international links. I'm just going to post the UK one because I'm guessing most of you here will be attending UK. So I'm going to do that one separately. There you go. So there you go. There's the links. So it should be a fun day. Should be a really, really fun day to attend, and be a great way to network and learn. So yeah, lots of thanks from Dominique, and from Harold, from N Mehta, from Abhijit. Oh, Abhijit's got a question. So one final question from Abhijit. Can we create a power app just to show the sales insight info per user basis?
That's interesting, but I don't see why not. Now, personally, I haven't played with the endpoints that they made available, but I would, before answering that question, have a look at the endpoint to see what data you actually get from that, and then that's what you can then use to levy into the Power App. But it's not a bad idea. No, but with Dynamics, I know that you can, of course, if you've got the Dynamic Sales app, you can actually see sales insights inside that app as well. So
there you go. So yep. So again, fantastic. Thanks again, Tricia. That's how you connect with Tricia. Follow her on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and that's her blog right there. So make sure you follow make sure you follow Tricia, because she's doing lots of stuff at the moment, and covering all the highly relevant new announcements. She's working very closely with the product group as well. So she's usually tackling the nuances and addressing them before Microsoft gets to announce the answers. So that's really good of Tricia to be tackling the issues of implementing sales insights, customer insights herself, going through the problems and getting through those teething issues so that you don't have to. So fantastic again, great news. Get involved in that community event. Pradeep is saying thanks again. So is Abhijit, Asina, Davey, people from all around the world. So really, really happy that so many people from around the world are attending today to attend this session. I think you all realize and appreciate that Dynamics has changed from being a traditional legacy standalone application to being more action-based, providing actionable insights, and that's the importance of the sales insights. Again, thank you. Pangesh is also saying thanks, Tricia. Thank you, everyone. Our next session does begin in 5 minutes. So our next is a new speaker, actually, someone who